worms need water. The worms don't breathe through their mouth like you and I do.
They don't.
They breathe through their skin, but in order to breathe through their skin, they need to have water on their skin. So if you put worms in a really dry place, they would actually suffocate because they wouldn't be able to breathe. Between 10 and 25 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to put this outside in the wintertime because they would probably freeze. But you wouldn't really want to put it right in the direct sun in the summertime because they might get a little too warm. The brown stuff, which is the bedding material. And then when you feed them, you kind of make a little hole in the bedding material. And then you put the food in there. And then you have to make sure to cover it back up. Otherwise, fruit flies might find their way into the worm bin.
And then you guys will be like,
to make sure that the food is covered. And when you put your food in the compost bucket, like on the counter, to have a lid on that compost bucket so the fruit flies don't get in there before and then you put them in your worm bin. So, does anybody know what worms can eat?
Regular vegetables and stuff like that.
Yep. And they can eat fruit, so all the peelings from your vegetable or your fruit. Any like little end of a carrot or broccoli. The only thing that you shouldn't put in here is orange peels, because the oranges are a bit too sour for the worms, so it kind of burns their skin a bit. And also not other citrus peels like lemons or limes or grapefruits. You can feed them coffee grounds and tea bags, but you can take worms don't have teeth like you and I. They actually have a gizzard like a chicken.
Oh, a gizzard.
So the bacteria first, say we're gonna compost an apple core. The bacteria will come along and they'll start to make the apple core nice and mushy. And then once the apple core is nice and mushy, the worms will come along and suck it up kind of like a milkshake. And then it'll go into their gizzard. And they have little grains of sand in there and it grinds it up so that the worms can digest it. So it's good to put a little bit of sand in your worm bin every now and again. Worms will lay eggs in the worm box and they'll make more worms. So when the worms get old, they die in here and they get composted as well. And the baby worms are kind of white looking and they're about an inch long. And you'll probably see them in there after a while. There might even be a few in there already because I just picked a bunch of random worms out of our bin to give you guys. Leaves, dry grasses. You can use birch and aspen sawdust because it's pretty benign. You wouldn't want to put cedar in there because it's a bit antiseptic. So this is your worms. It's like a worm sandcastle. It's good if you're putting food in here that it's a bit more chopped up. But like the lettuce leaves and stuff like that, we can put some of this in. Delicious eggplant.
Oh, I love eggplant. Oh, I love eggplant. I love eggplant.
You can feed them between half a pound and a pound of food a day. So maybe like this kale is pretty light.
Yeah.
And then this eggplant's pretty dense, so it's a bit heavier.
So
maybe
that much for a day?
Yeah, this much for a day. Your worm bin won't stink, so I'm breaking it up a little bit before I put it in there.
Yeah.
So that the worms will have an easier time eating it. And your worm bin won't stink unless you're feeding them too much food or the bedding is too pushed out. So if you're kind of like smelling a little bit ripe in there, maybe just don't feed them for a couple days and let them catch up. Because if there's too much food in there, it'll just start to rot like a regular compost, and then you know that you don't want that inside. But if you feed them the right amount, then the worms will always keep up to it, and before it gets stinky, they'll already have eaten it. And they can't eat meat, so don't put any like ham sandwiches in there or anything like that. They can eat a little bit of bread, but not too much, or like rice or something like that. But once this layer starts to get quite full, this thing comes with 3 layers. So once it's full, you put this next layer on, and then start feeding them up there and put more bedding up there. And the worms just crawl through the holes in here. So then they'll just go up to this next layer and kind of leave that one behind. And they'll, be composting that. And then after that one gets full, you put this one on. And then by the time they're kind of working on this layer big time, this bottom layer will be totally finished, and it'll just look like really black dirt. And then you can take that and you could just put it in your garden or put it in your plants inside, and it's like a really rich fertilizer for them. And then after you dump this bottom layer out, it'll become your new top layer. So you just keep rotating them through like that, so it's not too much work for you. And this is a little tap here on the front. And you might notice that if your compost is really moist, some will drain out down into this reservoir down here. And you can drain that liquid out and mix it with some water and then use it as a fertilizer for your plants inside. One, because there has to be kind of some contact between the layers so the worms don't have to
Oh, yeah.
jump up to the next one. That's pretty much how you worm compost.